Well, I am happy to see you tonight, and I'm happy to have you here. We're going to be talking about James Talarico and what's really going on in Texas because he's scaring some folks. James Talarico has been described as having Jimmy Carter's faith and Barack Obama's spirit, and he is scaring some folk. So we're going to be talking about that tonight and what's really going on in Texas and what's really driving those numbers. I am Dorothy Burton. I'm your host. We do this every Tuesday evening, and we talk about politics, we talk about faith, we talk about leadership, and we talk about power and how those four things shape our life and impact our existence. So I'm glad to have you here. We're going to get right to it. Let me do this first. Hey, Susie, I'm so glad to see you. You know I'm always glad to see you. I love you. Thank you for being here. As a matter of fact, let me do this first, y'all, because tonight we're going to be doing our first gathering on the porch for the neighborhood. You know, YouTube channels have like memberships, and everybody kept telling me, you got to have a community, you got to have a community. Well, I fought it for a long time, but I think it'd be a pretty neat thing. And so tonight we're going to kind of cut tonight short, but we're not going to cut the program short because we got a lot to get to. And then after that, we're gonna gather on the front porch, on the online front porch, and we're gonna talk privately and just have a time of conversation and connection. And I have what I'm going to do tonight. Since I am introducing that, I'm going to put the Zoom link in private chat. And if you want to be part of our neighborhood with Ophelia and Susie and Patrick, me, so far it's only us. But anyway, we're going to get together tonight afterwards, and we're going to meet on the porch because I'm just old country girl, and we solve the world's problems on the front porch. So now let's get into what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about James Talarico and why this race is scaring the Republicans to death. Now, James Talarico, let me start with this because that just came out today. A new poll that just came out today, and it's the third poll in a row showing James Talarico leading both John Cornyn and Ken Paxton. And it's from the Texas Public Opinion Research poll this month. Talarico against Paxton is up by 5 points, and Talarico up against John Cornyn is up. If the elections were held today, he'd be up by 3 points. And that is making some people nervous, especially the Republicans. And why is that? Because see, Talarico comes across, I call him Opie. Talarico comes across as this all shucks, kind of, just a good old boy, a little boy next door. And Opie is that. He's a sweet kid. I mean, he's a sweet man. But Opie is also very shrewd. And Opie is also very smart. And Opie is also very popular with not only Texas Democrats, growing number of Texas Republicans, but also the East and West Coast Democrats. Now, a lot of Democrats who are moderates in D.C., they're warming up to him because he's a little more, left than they are. But when they consider the alternative, is either Ken Paxton or John Cornyn, I just, all of us have, that's our choice. That's our choice. And like I was about to say, Talarico comes across as this little boy, all shucks, little boy next door. Talarico is smart as a whip. Talarico, I think, first got elected when he was 26 years old, 2018, down in the Hill Country, and he flipped a Republican seat. So the Republicans know that the Republicans know he's a seat flipper. They just don't know what the extent of his seat flipping is. Now, he has a background that many can identify, whether you're black, white, Latino. He comes from his mother fled his abusive father when I think James was 7 weeks old. He was a baby. And his mom was a single mother, and she worked and worked and worked, and she met Mark Talarico. And Mark Talarico, Talarico is Italian. Talarico is not Hispanic. Some people say it's Hispanic. It's not. And so that was his humble beginnings. But although he had humble beginnings, and he's an humble guy, don't take him lightly. And I think the Republicans did. They were thinking, oh, he's going to be easy. See, Talarico, not only is he a seminarian and studying to be a pastor, and he knows the theological piece of it. And see, that's what scares so much the Republicans, because of the Democrats. For whatever reason, the Democrats just gave over that lane to Republicans a long time ago, back in the 80s and 90s. The Democrats said, y'all have it. And so the Republicans took it. So the Republicans back in the 80s and the 90s, they took that lane. And in Texas, it cost them. Because when I was coming up in Texas, like, I'm a fifth generation Texan, right? So when I was coming up in Texas, high school, I remember sitting because I went to state in track. I remember y'all sitting in Doc Briscoe's seat. And if you're under 50, maybe if you're under 60, you have no idea who Doc Briscoe is. But that was a really big deal coming from Jefferson, Texas. And I'm sitting there, man, in Doc Briscoe's seat. But when the Democrats conceded over, see, because Texas still is very conservative, and even Democrats are conservative in Texas and don't think that Democrats are not Christians, because they are. They, for whatever reason, though, gave over the lane. Well, guess what? Talarico is taking that lane back, and the Republicans understand it. Now, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna date myself. If you are under 50, look, if you are under 50 in Texas, and Democrat is your party, y'all ain't never won. Y'all ain't never won. If you are under 50 years old, you vote Democrat all day long in Texas, you didn't win. Let me show you. Let me show you in my deal is what's really happening in Texas. And I'm trying to get this all out in an hour, y'all, because this is so good. And on Tuesday night, we try to go behind the news, and I try to explain to you, what's happening, what's really happening, and why it's really happening. So here comes Talarico. Talarico speaks the language. Talarico is very well spoken. Talarico is also way to the left. It's Christianity. Now, when he said God is not binary, it sent the Republican Christians through the roof. Well, I got news for you. God he's not binary. He's spirit. He's spirit. But really, it's kind of funny, y'all, but it's not. As a trained theologian, it's not funny. But on the other hand, it's really funny. And Talarico is a trained theologian too, and he knew what he was saying. And this got under their skin more than anything. And see, these are the kinds of things that Talarico says. And the Republicans and the Christians hate. He said, okay, when it comes to reproductive rights, he said, even the Virgin Mary believed in reproductive rights, because when the angel came to Mary and said, "Hail Mary, you're going to be with child," and Mary was saying, "How could this be? How could this be?" And the angel told her the Holy Spirit was going to, come over her, and she was going to produce a son, and blah 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 blah. And Talarico said, "See," he said, "that proves that it is consensual, whether you want to have whether you want to get pregnant or not." Because she could have said no, but she said, yeah, so that's reproductive rights. So she exercised her reproductive right to say yes to the angel. That sent the Republicans. That sent them. It's kind of funny when you think about it. But that sent them evangelicals through the roof. And what Talarico is doing, and it's so brilliant what he's doing. It's so brilliant. And he looks like he's about 15. He looks like he's about 15 years old. But that plays well with part of his strategy. And what's really happening in Texas. Let me get serious, because I want y'all to get it. I want y'all to understand it. Talarico has an army of 20-somethings. When I say he has an army of 20-somethings, the boy has an army of 20-somethings. He has over 10,000 volunteers. And what he has tasked, and he has over 2 million followers on social media. Now, y'all know social media is a thing. Now, you get somebody like Ken Paxton, who is 63 years old, and and John Cornyn, who is 75 years old, something like that, 78, almost, closer to 80 than he is 70. Okay. Talarico has reignited or has ignited something in Texas that Texans haven't seen in a long time, even though Texas is a young state. Talarico is taking full advantage of his youth. He's taking full advantage of his theological background. He's taking full advantage of his intellect. James Talarico, even though he comes from a broken home, his mother married, remarried, all that, and, he had issues with his biological father, all that. He has issues. We all do. But Talarico is very intelligent. Talarico is a graduate of UT Austin. And then the boy went to Harvard and got his master's. So he's a graduate of UT Austin. He's a graduate of Harvard. And now he is in Presbyterian Seminary to be a pastor. And he's young. And he's affable. And he's likable. And he understands people. And when I say he understands people, unlike Paxton and unlike Cornyn, who are principally fighting over the same group, that was okay. But then you throw in somebody like a Talarico, and Talarico is eating into part of their group, and what part of the group is that? And that's the Christians. That's the Christians. As I said before, if you're under 50, you may have voted for Democrat, but you ain't elected no Democrat. Not here, not in Texas. Let me show you something. Let me show you something right now. Not that one, you've seen that. Let me show you this. As I paint this picture for you. Keep in mind, James Talarico is only 36 years old. The last Democratic governor elected in Texas was Ann Richards, and that was in 1990. James Talarico was born in 1989. So he was only a year old or less, or months old, when Ann Richards was elected governor, and she was the last Democrat governor to be elected in Texas. Texas hasn't elected a Democrat statewide since 1994. In 1994, James Talarico was 5. So I'm just trying to paint you a picture here and bring you up to date of where we are now, what's really happening in this state, and what's really scaring them to death, and what you won't hear probably any place, because I don't do the politics. I'm just going to tell y'all the real deal. So Talarico was only 5 years old. Last time a Democrat was elected statewide, it was 1994. And this last one, Democrats have not won a statewide seat in over 30 years, spanning 100 consecutive races. And I underlined that in red because when I did my research, that was so unbelievable even to me. And I'm very active in Texas. I'm very active. Y'all know my background, Republican, 78 to 2018. But 100 consecutive races Democrats have lost, spanning 30 years, statewide. And when you look at this, let me put this back up here. When you look at now a Talarico leading the 2 Republican candidates, one by 5 points, one by 3 points. And this is the third poll showing his lead, and his lead isn't diminishing. In fact, it's inching upwards. Why is that with the Democrats? With the Republicans. Let me show you this. This is a quote from Jackson. I think he pronounces his name Lemire. He is the founder of Pastors for Trump. Yeah, there is an organization called Pastors for Trump, and he's the founder, and he's also the lead pastor of Sheridan Church in Oklahoma. He says this. He says, I think Democrats are only talking about faith because they realize the largest voting bloc in America is the evangelical bloc. And to win an election, they're going to have to tap into that. I don't think they're going to succeed because the values of the Democratic platform are irreconcilable with the values of evangelicals. He's talking about Talarico. He talks a lot about, God was non-binary. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not going to work. That language is not going to attract evangelicals. It's going to push evangelicals even further away. Now, that's what Pastor, I think it's Lamaya, how he pronounces his name, said, who is the founder of Pastors for Trump, that group. But Talarico, with his army of 20-somethings, what that man just said about the evangelicals and the Christians not responding to a progressive left-wing Christian like Talarico is just flat out wrong. And see, it's perplexing them. Because what Talarico is doing, I told you before, is real smart. What Talarico, and not only is he real smart, Talarico is described as like the consummate politician. I don't know if he tries to be that or not, but he is. And what Talarico has done, knowing that what that man said is true to a degree, but not to the degree that pastor is saying, because the numbers say differently. And the reason why the numbers say differently is because Talarico has an army of 20-somethings. And what those 20-somethings do with his 2 million followers on Instagram, he has tasked those 20-somethings, the thousands of them, that does his social media postings to his 2 million followers. He has told them he wants them to find Bible verses and to find old Bible verses and just start posting them. Because what it's doing is, when they post the Bible verse, they don't come back like the Republicans do. They come back with the word of God. They come back with the word. Because what Talarico said, he said, Texas Republicans, and he didn't just not say this, we know this, those of us who are involved. Texas Republicans have tried to co-opt Christianity, and they have, to the extent that Democrats have allowed them to in Texas. Part of the way that Talarico is appealing and reclaiming that is putting to work this army of 20-something-year-olds on social media to his over 2 million followers, and they post Bible verses. And when people like Donald Trump say, what did he say? I wrote it down because I wanted to. Donald Trump said that Talarico insults Jesus. I wrote that down because I wanted. Donald Trump, of all people, dressing up like Jesus. He said he insults Jesus. That's what Trump said. And then Paxton. Now, Paxton ain't nothing but a tramp. Paxton, his wife divorced him because we all know his story. Paxton had nerve enough to say, when we expose him, when we expose who he really is, people won't vote for him. So see, they are going after what Talarico has already built a defense for. Because he's so I'm telling you, the boy is smart. Not only is he a theologian, but he's a Harvard graduate. He's a UT graduate. He flipped his first seat when he was 26 years old down in the hill country. That wasn't supposed to happen. And he is shrewd, the consummate politician. And he said, and what he is doing and what he has effectively done, he said that we have to recast religion for a younger generation or risk losing them. Remember, say it again. He said we have to recast religion for a younger generation or risk losing them. He's making it popular to be Christian again. Now, y'all have heard me talk about Governor Abbott. And y'all have heard me talk about our esteemed Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, and the Turning Point USA chapters. The mandate, and when I say mandate, Governor Abbott has mandated, and we've talked about this. I know a lot of stuff, I talk about here, it go in one ear, other, okay, good, that's okay. But months later, I'm always proved to be right. Not that I'm so smart, but I am smart about this. So, back in the fall, so that's why, Governor Abbott has mandated that these Turning Point USA chapters will be in all high schools. Now, I'm told, I don't know this, I'm told there are like over 3,500 high schools in Texas. I don't know, but somebody said that. And I said at the time, you see, with Talarico being who he is and what he is, and has this enormous Pied Piper influence over these young Christians, Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, Ken Paxton, we're going to expose, who you going to expose for what? And not to the extent, but John Cornyn too. These 4 old white men know what time it is. So to combat this force of young people that Talarico has, and they are drawn to him too, to combat that, they have had to recruit their own young people. And that's the Turning Point USA chapters in these high schools and these colleges, to the point where Greg Abbott says any school district, any school district that resists a Turning Point USA chapter in their school, that school district is going to be sanctioned by the state. That's how desperate they are to claim their youth. Talarico not doing that. Talarico is like the Pied Piper. They just follow him. On the other hand, with these Republicans, they're having to do a forced deal, forcing the school districts to have these chapters. Let me show you this. Let me show you this. And we're talking about what's really happening in Texas. Let me. Okay. This will help you make sense of it. I just said what's really happening. This is what scares them, y'all. Scares them. Republicans only have a 53 to 47 advantage in the 100-seat Senate. We're talking about the Senate, not the Texas Senate, the Senate. Democrats need to make only a net gain of 4 seats in November to retake control. 4 seats. Now, it's much easier with Texas. It's much easier with the House, not so much with the Senate, and that's why these fights over these redistricting and these gerrymandering, because the Republicans know what that advantage is. They know that the advantage is really, really slim, and all the Democrats have to do is win 4 seats and retake control. Now, if Talarico win a seat, all they have to do is win 3 more from across the country, and they take control. But this is the meat of the deal right here, and what's really happening here, and what scares the Republicans. Look at the majority of Talarico's supporters. The majority of Talarico supporters are Latinos and Blacks and college-educated, urban white women. Now, white women in Texas vote. White women in Texas are the most outvotingest bloc than any vote, any bloc in Texas. They are the most dependable. They vote right at 60, sometimes upward 60 and over % of vote. They vote. Talarico is eating into those urban white women voters. Talarico is also capturing the moderates. Talarico is also capturing the independents. And we just talked about those young voters, 20-somethings, those 20-somethings that he has. and why Abbott and the Republicans are investing so heavily. And when I say investing heavily in mandating these Turning Point USA chapters in high schools, they are mandating. When I say they are investing. I'm talking about money. I'm talking about your money, my money, tax dollars to fund these Turning Point USA chapters in these high schools. And Dan Patrick has given $1 million of his own money. We've talked about that before. I showed you the big check he was holding up the big check. $1 million of his own money that he gave to Turning Point USA here in Texas. And look at Paxton and Corning's majority supporters. And see, Paxton and Corning, they share this same demographic. They are sharing a diminishing Latino vote. The Latino vote, particularly the Latino male vote, was cash money in 2024 for Donald Trump, and the Republicans. That's not that way anymore because of ICE and because of the draconian actions of this president. They have white, conservative, the old people, high school education or less, and I spelled education wrong. Excuse me, my teacher says out there. I just saw that. Rural and white males. Now, I put both of the last demographic, highlighted both of them Christians. Because this right here is what keeps the Republicans up at night when they look at this. Look at Talarico's share of the vote in Texas, the demographic. He has the larger share, the larger demographic in Texas. Now, when you throw in the Christian vote, if Talarico is able, keep in mind, I said Democrats only need 4 seats. 4 seats. That 4 seats, they can get them anywhere in the country. If Talarico flipped this seat, if he stays on this same trajectory, he will, and that's what the Republicans know. The Democrats are only going to need 3 seats. And Talarico is going to turn Texas, he's going to turn that seat, which has not been, and I showed y'all a number, that hadn't been, if you 50, or younger, you don't even know what it's like to have a statewide Democrat. But when they look at this, and I didn't put up, because I've shown it to you before, the demographics of Texas, of what Texas really and truly looks like. Texas is a young brown state. The average age of Texans is 36. How old is Talarico? Talarico, 36. It's not old and white. It's young and brown, and their average age is 36. And when you look at the demographic of what I just showed you, of Talarico, I'm showing you what's really happening here. I'm showing you the picture. I'm painting you the picture. This is what they see. Now, what is really where the fight is going to come in, where they are going to attack Talarico the most, let me find it. Where they are going to, that's not what I want. No, I don't want either. Well, let me see. Okay, I may as well, look, since I'm here, let's look at this. Let me find it again. Okay. I was reading an article. Wait, let me read this verse. I was reading an article from the British Broadcasting Company. This reporter did an interview. Actually, she didn't know she's with the British Broadcasting Company, but she's with the British Broadcasting Company, but she is stationed in Washington, D.C. And she spent a lot of time with James Talarico because she's saying, okay, even across the way, even in Britain, they're looking at this race in Texas and they're going, you know what, that something is happening in Texas. So this woman came all the way to sit and spend some time with Talarico to do what we're talking about tonight, what's really happening in Texas. Let me put this back up here, because this is the crux of the matter right here. This right here. And keep in mind the demographic of Texas. The average age of Texas is 36. And I've said it before, rural Texas rules Texas. However, Talarico is cutting into one of the most surest demographics of the Republicans, and that's the rural white vote. If you look at his share, Talarico's share, Latinos and blacks and college educated and urban white women, moderates, independents, the 20-somethings, and then you add in there the Christians too. See, that demographic didn't belong in the Democratic checkbox before, but it does now. And when you leverage that out with what either Paxton or Corning, because but for MAGA, they share the same base. They're going after the same people. Except MAGA is on Paxton's side. That's why Paxton is going to win, because Texas is MAGA white. Okay? On the Republican side. On the Republican side. That Christian vote right there. And when I say what's really happening in Texas, that right there is what's really happening in Texas. And that 4 seats, if Talarico wins this seat, it's over for the Republicans. They could always count on the Senate. They can't count on the Senate anymore at all. And when it comes out after May 26th, and I'm still saying, y'all know I've been saying, I may be wrong, I've been saying it, that it's going to be Paxton. When you look at, if the Republicans were smart, but they're not. They're not. They're arrogant. They're self-righteous. They're cunning, but they're not smart. And I'm going to tell you why they're not smart. Because if they were smart, they would elect John Cornyn. But they're not smart. Of the two, with the Republicans, Talarico is less likely to beat John Cornyn. Less likely. He's more likely to beat Ken Paxton. But like I say, the Republicans are not smart. They're clever. They're, but they're not smart. Because they're not going to elect John Cornyn. I've been saying it for months and months and months. I may have egg on my face come May 26th. But I doubt it. And for Paxton to say, and see, Paxton, see in Texas, let me go back to this too. Because this right here is just really, this right here is really sad. And let me leave it up there for a minute. The problems that we have in Texas, and I'm going to say this as a former Republican in Texas. Looking back, hindsight is always 20/20. What is that saying? Life is understood. Life is lived linearly. Life is lived forward but understood backwards. I think that's how it is, something like that. Life is lived forward but understood backwards. When Ann Richards was governor, I think Texas was in the top 10. And I have some teachers on here that they can tell me and correct me. I think Texas was like number 7 or 8 as far as public education goes. We are last. If not dead last, we are near dead last. In every major people, voter, citizen, constituent comfort, Texas is dead last. Whether we're talking about public education, and I'm not ragging on anybody. I'm just telling you what the truth is. Whether we're talking about public education, whether we're talking about public health, whether we're talking about rural hospitals, whether we're talking about universities, whether we're talking about quality of life, in every major metric of life, that makes people comfortable. And I'm not talking about extravagancies. I'm just talking about the basics. I'm talking about affordability of health, affordability of healthcare, affordability of housing, affordability of education. Not only the affordability of education, but excuse me, the quality of education. Every metric is red. Every metric is red. I don't care which one of them you look at. I don't care which one of them you look at. And the Republicans cannot blame the Democrats. As a former Republican, I'm going to say we can't blame the Democrats, because over 30 years, 100 consecutive statewide races, the Republicans have won every last one of them. There hasn't been a Democratic governor since 1990. We're sitting at 2026, looking at 2027. 30 years, 100 consecutive races. And the Republicans have steadily had to rig, redraw, gerrymander the state to keep control of the House and the Senate. But the fever is breaking, because people now are getting the picture like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. But see, the only way, and I don't have that. I usually keep it to put it up there. Y'all get tired of seeing it. But I usually put my demographic up there. The demographics of Texas do not favor Republicans. They have not favored Republicans for a while. And the only way Republicans have managed to maintain those seats and win 100, y'all won't hear me, 100 consecutive statewide races with no Democratic governor since 1990. They have had to rig the system. And they have rigged the system. That's why Governor Abbott had no qualms at all, none whatsoever, when Trump said, hey, man, I need 5 seats. Hey, ain't no problem. I got you. It was no qualm, no hesitation. When Greg Abbott gave over our voting records back in December to the DOJ to purge the records. Why? Because the demographics of Texas no longer support. I'm going to show it again. Demographics of Texas no longer support this. No longer support that. And we come over here for the first time. We look at these majority supporters now, what that looks like now, hence 1990, hence Beto, hence those 100 consecutive statewide losses. They have held on to this Christian vote since the 1980s onward. And now, with the growing support that Talarico has among this huge demographic, because it was at one time unheard of. It was at one time unheard of for white Republican women, to be voting for a Democrat. That just did not happen. Christians voting for a Democrat. That did not happen. Young voters voting at all, because I'm telling you, the young people, as I said, if you're 50 and under, and a Democrat, you don't have much incentive. You have not had much incentive to vote because you weren't gonna win. You weren't gonna win. But now Talarico has flipped that thing. He has flipped it. So what's happening in Texas is almost a reversal of what we have been seeing these past, since 1990, actually. These 100, they are afraid that this 100 office winning streak is about to come to an end because they've never had anybody like a Talarico to eat into the demographic that they have, that's been their money voter since 1990. And with the gerrymandering, with the changing of the state, and I'd put that number up there too. Texas is a majority-minority state. It is a majority-minority state. White people make up 30-something% of the population. The rest of the population is Hispanic, mostly Hispanic. Hispanic is the largest demographic in Texas. And Hispanics, for the most part, are conservative voters. And Republicans have been able to count on those conservative Republican Hispanics, and the Hispanics are mainly conservative because of their religious views, because most of them are Catholic. And they don't believe in abortion. They don't believe in same-sex marriage. So a lot of what they believe theologically has lined up with Republicans, and Republicans have exploited that. They've exploited it very, very well. Because if you look at what Hispanics have gotten in the state of Texas in exchange for their loyalty, in exchange for their vote, they have gotten nothing. They haven't gained any more seats. No more than black people have. They haven't captured a majority of anything unless it's down sharing the border with Mexico. Only gains they've made is in the urban areas. And that's shared with black voters. So the return on their vote, the return on their investment in the Republican Party, they are beginning to see that. I showed y'all last week, I think it was last week, the Hispanic business owner was saying, hey, I voted for Trump, all this, and that other. And he ain't going for Trump this time. He's going for Talarico. And we saw even in the primary with Talarico, with the Hispanic vote, with Jasmine Crockett. And that vote has only increased. Even conservative Hispanics, a number of them are switching to Talarico, have switched to Talarico. Not all of them, because their faith, the Hispanics next to white conservatives are the most conservative bloc of voters in Texas and America. So to eat into that Hispanic vote the way Talarico is, scaring the hell out of Republicans. Because just like the Democrats have always known that the money vote for them was the black vote, Republicans have always known that the Hispanic vote was the money vote for them. Ain't that way no more. And it's scaring them. Back to the woman that was the reporter, because I read that article. See, let me put this up there. Remember the preacher? The guy, not Katie, that's the reporter. Where is his vote? Remember the guy that I put up there? Pastors for Trump, the founder of Pastors for Trump. He said, now Democrats, now, black Democrats have been Christians forever. Black Democrats just ain't started talking about Christianity. Just ain't started talking about faith. But see, white people have taken, like I said, white people have, like Talarico has said, they have tried to co-opt Christianity. Black people and Hispanic people are the most conservative people, voters, people in Texas. Always have been. Not white people. Hispanics and blacks, when it comes to religion, when it comes to Christianity. But white evangelicals and white Christian nationalists have co-opted that. Well, along comes a Talarico. Now, what this man is saying, they really believe that. This founder of Pastors for Trump. I think Democrats are only talking about faith because they realize the largest voting bloc in America is the evangelical bloc. And to win the election, they're going to have to tap into that. Well, they are. And like I said at the beginning, that's what's scaring the bejeebers out of them. And that's what's happening in Texas. And that's what's happening with this race. And that's why when this poll came out, I was not shocked at all. Talarico is 3 for 3. He is 3 for 3 when it comes to lining up how he lines up with either of them, Corning or Paxton. Who is the better bet? Like I said, the better bet is Corning. But both of them, when you look at the demographics of Texas and you look at who Texas is and who Texans really are, they look like Talarico. As far as age go, they look like Talarico. They don't look like a 63-year-old Paxton. They don't look like no 74-year-old Corning. And he's bringing those young Christians back. But like he said, he's not bringing them back the conventional way. He said you have to recast religion for this younger generation or lose them. And that's what Talarico has been successful in doing. And that's why he is gaining and he keeps gaining and he keeps gaining. Let's look at this last quote. Like I said, we got to get out of here. We can get on a porch. But I read this article. It's in the Times. It's a British Broadcasting Corporation paper. And she said this. I'm going to end it with this. And then I'm going to get your questions and we're going to go on the porch. She said, what's happening here is not just a Senate race, but a test of whether faith itself can be politically recoded. Remember, he calls it recasting. She calls it recoded. And that's what we're looking at. I want y'all to remember these two words. I want you to remember recoded and recasting, because that's what you're going to see going forward in faith in Christianity with these younger voters. Recoded and recasting, okay? For decades, Republicans have treated religion as an electoral moat. Now, keep in mind, she's British, so she's using these. A language Democrats could not speak without sounding inauthentic. Talarico is attempting something riskier. Not to borrow that language, but to rewrite it. He calls it, y'all, recasting it, okay? Keep that in mind. If he fails, it will confirm the old assumption that God talk in American politics belongs to the right. But if he succeeds, even narrowly and imperfectly, it will shift the fault line in U.S. politics. Bam! That's it right there. That is their fear, and that's what they see, and that is what is happening, y'all, in Texas. The fault line is shifting. The faith fault line is shifting. She said it will shift the fault line in U.S. politics. It already is. Not between left and right, but between rival moral visions, each claiming the same scriptures, symbols, and authority. In Texas, of all places, that argument is now out in the open. And that, y'all, is what's happening in Texas. And that's what's happening with this race. The fault lines have shifted. Talarico calls it recasting. The reporter called it, she called it, what did she called it? I'm not inauthentic. Testify the faith, decades not speak without anything. Talarico is attempting something risky, not to borrow the language, but to rewrite it. Yeah, rewrite it. She calls it rewriting it. He calls it recasting it. Either way, what's really happening in Texas is that fault line. And that fault line is Christianity and faith. And when Trump says, I wrote it down, he insults Jesus. And Ken Paxton says, once we expose his views, he's done, talking about Talarico. So once we get past May 28th, May 26th, and it comes out, I believe it'll be a Paxton. What you're going to see, y'all, is not so much the politics, although that will be there. It's going to be the religion. That's the fault line. Not left or right, like the reporter said. Left or right is not the fault line anymore. The fault line is faith. It's faith. And what was sure at one point for the Republicans, that fault line is shifting and has dramatically shifted. And it keeps shifting because every time a poll comes out, it may be 1 percentage point, excuse me, or maybe 2. But that fault line keeps shifting towards Talarico. And y'all, that is what is happening in Texas. And let me show you this, because I didn't show it. This is almost Talarico's rallying cry. This is almost, I think this may be his campaign slogan, love thy neighbor. And you hear him say it everywhere he goes. You see he has it on his mask as he's serving water. I think that's in Taylor, Texas. Taylor, Texas is down near Austin, I think, down in Williamson County. But this is who he is. See, you're not going to find Ken Paxton. Listen, you ain't going to find Ken Paxton and John Cornyn doing this. They ain't going to do it. They're not going to do it. But see, Talarico's view of Christianity and their view of Christianity is very, 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 very different. And that's why Paxton says we're going to have to expose that. So after May 26th, Talarico is not so much going to have to fight the politics. He's going to have to fight the politics, but it's going to be the Christians. The Christians. The Christians, like this man right here, the pastor that founded Pastors for Trump. He said, I don't think they're going to succeed because the values of the Democrat platform are irreconcilable with the values of evangelicals. Well, like Talarico said, when I think it was Trump that said he insults Jesus, Talarico said, no, you insult Jesus when you take food from the poor and you don't welcome the immigrant, and when you do all these nefarious things to children, and that insults Jesus. So y'all, this is going to turn into, now, you can pick your side, Democrat, Republican, you can pick your side, Talarico. And to me, as a Christian theologian trained, listen, Dallas Theological Seminary, the Presbyterian seminary where Talarico is, ain't nothing compared to Dallas Theological Seminary. Dallas is when it comes to conservative evangelicalism. That's what the fight is going to be, because that's what the fault line is. Because it's never been, y'all, that the Democrats have had this kind of advantage. Never. And that's why, what we're looking at right there, That's why they've never won. I ain't say we never won, but they haven't won since 1994. And not a governorship since 1990. We've had George W. Bush. We've had Rick Perry. We've had this demon, Abbott, that we have. We've had this demon for way too long. And he is a demon. He's demonic. I've said that. I won't bite my tongue about that because that man is demonic. So y'all, they have to do what they when those seats. Let me put that back up there. Let me put that back up there. Let me see. Is that the one I'm looking for? Nah, that's not the one I'm looking for. This is the one I'm looking for right here. This is the one I'm looking for right here. Like they say, right there. Y'all see that? Them 4 seats. If Talarico wins this seat in Texas, and y'all, that's why they're fighting, the redistricting in Virginia. They've yet, I mean, the Republicans are falling like dominoes, and can't before more of them afford to fall. And so when they get these numbers in Texas of all places, let me enlarge that again. In Texas of all places, they have to do some things that they've not had to do because they've not had to do them since 1990. Like these Turning Point USA chapters in high schools and mandating those high schools be there. Those chapters be there, or else schools get punished. That's not about the kids. That's about turning those kids conservative and Christian so that come November, they can vote to combat this army of 20-somethings that Talarico has working for him day in, day out, tweeting out, posting on Instagram, these Bible verses, old Bible verses, relating them to what's going on today. Smart. I'm telling the boy, smart. Opie's smart. Opie is really, really, really smart. He's very smart. And he's beating them at their own game. And he's doing it with a smile, and he's doing it with the love of Christ. And it's killing them because they don't know what to do with that. They don't know what to do with that. And y'all, this is the last gasp for the Republicans in Texas. And I'm going to put that back up there because I know some of y'all had never seen those numbers before, having lived through it. I didn't know it was 100 consecutive races that, statewide races that Republicans have won. So whenever you hear Republicans talk about the condition of our schools, the condition of our hospitals, the condition of our streets, the conditions, it's them. It's not the Democrats. Democrats haven't been in office. Yeah, put it back up there. Put that back up there. The last time there was a Democratic governor, James Talarico was 1 year old, if that. Depending on he may have not been one yet. He may not have even been one yet, because the boy wasn't born until 1989. Ann Richards, last time we had a governor, Texas had a governor, was 1990. I want y'all to look at that and let that soak in, let that sink in, because see, that's something that the Republicans can't run away from. They can't hide behind the cross. They can't hide behind the Bible. They can't hide anymore. And Talarico, they don't know how to contend with that. They can't gerrymander him away. They can't scare him away. They can't shame him away. They can't out-Bible him out the way. They can't out-Christian him out the way. But like I said, they are scared to death of this 30 consecutive year run that they've had. And 100, let that sink in, 100 consecutive wins for Republicans in Texas. And what's happening, y'all, ain't the politics. It's the religion. just like that reporter said. What's happening here is not just a Senate race, but a test of whether faith itself can be politically recoded or recast. For decades, Republicans have treated religion as an electoral moat, a language Democrats could not speak without sounding inauthentic. Talarico is attempting something riskier, not to borrow that language, but to rewrite it. If he fails, it will confirm the old assumption that God talk in American politics belongs to the right. But if he succeeds, even narrowly and imperfectly, it will shift the fault line in U.S. politics. Not between left and right, but between rival moral visions, each claiming the same scriptures, symbols, and authority. And in Texas, of all places, that argument is now out in the open. And y'all, that is what we're dealing with. And that is what is happening, not behind the scenes. That is the scene. But it's the scene that's overlooked by corporate media. It's the scene that's overlooked by talking heads, on these podcasts and things and all this and all that. This what I just showed y'all. That's the meat of it right there. It's not so much the politics, it's not his politics, but it's what he's been able to do and what he is still able to do. That's never been for Democrats. Not since 1990. And here we are. And like Talarico loves to say, he said, Jesus loves, but Christian nationalism kills. And that's his mantra. And they're gonna do everything they can to kill him. So y'all, this is not going to be about politics after May 26th. You watch what I'm telling you. And these talking heads can say whatever they want to say, and they will. They don't know Texas. They don't know Texas. They don't know the 100 consecutive law. They don't know. They understand that. They don't understand what really is the driver here. But Talarico does. And he uses almost the exact same words as that reporter. The rewriting, the recasting, re-envisioning Christianity for what it was truly meant to be. And Talarico reflects that. There's not been that before. And that's the secret sauce. That's what's driving them crazy. But it's also what's propelling. See, it's driving the Republicans crazy, but it is propelling Talarico. And there's a difference in politics between driving and propelling. And Talarico is on the propelling part, end of it. They are on the driving end of it, the Republicans. And that's why they have to have these Bible readings, public Bible readings, public declarations of religion and faith and all of this, because they are losing it. They are losing that battle. And they are losing that battle for the first time in Texas politics. And they understand, as Talarico understands, as we understand, so I want y'all to understand. If this trend stays and keeps up and short of, we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what Paxton meant by, once we expose his views, he's done. You can just about bet they're not going to come after Opie. They're not going to come after his politics. They're going to come after what they have lost and what they are losing, and that's the Christian vote. Because that has been the holy grail for Republicans in this state. Not so much anymore. At all. And y'all, that's what's really happening. That is what's really happening with this race. And it is fun. It is fun to watch. It is fun to watch. Y'all, I have put the link in the private chat if you are interested in knowing what the neighborhood and the front porch is all about. It's kind of like this, but it's more intimate, where we have conversations and we connect from wherever you are in the country, wherever you are, and we just get together and we talk on the front porch. We're going to do this at the end of every month, the last Tuesday of the month, to just kind of, connect and grow this community and grow in one another and learn from one another and do what little young Opie Talarico, his mantra is, and that is love thy neighbor. And we here on Tuesday nights, that's what we try to do. That's what I try to do, and just giving you the truth of the matter of what things are, what they really are, So that's where we are. The link is in the chat. And if you want to join us over there, I will see you guys over there. And I'm looking forward to it. And if the Lord says the same, I'll see y'all here next Tuesday. But y'all, that's what's happening in Texas. The fault lines have shifted. See y'all next time if the Lord says the same. And I'm going to see you over there on the porch.